but this is something that I'm definitely not used to as of yet. So you are the first guest in
The guinea pig.
Well, the guinea pig, yeah. I wouldn't word it necessarily like that, but that feels a bit harsh. But
No, man, I'm all for it. I'm all for being a test subject.
yeah. Well, I appreciate your time, mate, on this glorious Friday morning.
No, mate, honestly, mate, I appreciate you asking me on. It's something it's the sort of thing, I'd probably take more kind of gratitude in somebody asking me to come on a podcast than anything else, man. So
it's such a good space to chat, understand someone. I feel like what I found is, this is like episode 47 now that I've done. Probably had like 35 guests on. But when you obviously we've met in passing, briefly through, the gym and things like that, but you don't really get an opportunity to speak to someone on this level anymore.
Yeah.
Obviously we're very cameraed up and tech heavy here at the minute, but it's such a massive factor into sort of distracting people and keeping them, not giving the full 100% into a conversation. So when I do this and I speak to people, I have the privilege of doing it for like half an hour, over an hour. You really get a sense of, understanding someone in a way that you can't normally do.
Yeah, there's nothing but talking to be done,
Yeah. It is a very well, it's not an overly intimate space, but once the headphones are on, all you can hear is each other.
You're locked
in. Them eyes lock in, and then it's let's find out what we know, the deepest, darkest truths of each other. So with the podcast, I tend to always find that the best place to start is the beginning.
Yeah.
So obviously your journey, we spoke a little bit about it off sort of your fitness journey and things like that, but I'd love to know what made you get into fitness.
To be honest, man, to be honest, Jack, I started when I was about 15 years old. I grew up with very kind of holistic parents. So my mum's always been very kind of health focused. Shout out to my mum. She's a wonderful woman. Having a holistic background, my intrigue for kind of all things health related was certainly quite prominent. And when I was 15, it was mainly because I wouldn't call it bullying, but that kind of like when you have friends in school and there's always a comment to be made, and it was kind of, I was seen as the fat chubby kid, I had this kind of aura. I was always kind of athletic growing up, but I was always the kid that kind of like would never say no to a cookie, never say no to a pizza. So like I said to you earlier, whilst I grew up playing rugby, cricket, tennis, I did kind of everything apart from the more like, athletic sports. Like you wouldn't catch me running. If I was running, it had to be with a rugby ball. Do you know what I mean?
I feel that energy.
Yeah. So playing rugby and being kind of that chubby kid, I kind of got to a point with bullying at 15 where I was just sick of that image. I was sick of it. And it made me take a real good look at myself in terms of how I was very overweight. I weighed more than I do now, but I didn't obviously have really much muscle at all. I had as much muscle you could build from being an average genetic kid playing rugby.
Yeah.
There was no like weight training alongside that. It was never that deep. So yeah, mainly it was the first initiation was just fat loss and just going on a weight loss journey really. And I did that by getting into carnivore and keto dieting.
Yeah.
Like I said, having a holistic heavy background, it was probably quite easy to slip into that. I would certainly say carnivore and keto and things like that are certainly very holistic approaches to dieting. And growing up, I always kind of struggled with my like emotional relationship with food. Yeah. So I was a big foodie. My mum brought me up on good food. She had a massive background in catering, so she was fantastic at cooking. So from a young age, it was like I can appreciate what good food is.
It helps, doesn't it, when you can when it's good food as well?
Yeah. So certainly got that level of. I'm that friend that when you go out for food and if the food ain't right, I'm saying something because I know my standards. You know what I mean? Mum raised me right.
Yeah, Mum didn't raise no food
for sure, man. You're gonna be paying for it, so you may as well enjoy it. So yeah, it was probably keto and carnivore was the easiest thing for me to fall into because it was this premise in my own head of, well, as long as I stick to these rules, I can eat as much food as I want. And obviously that's not how it works. Yeah. But in the premise of that, if you're just eating loads of meat, eggs, fish, cheese, all these carnivore keto-y foods, you get full. You're not gonna overeat on that because you sustain. It's like, Jesus, like how much steak can you eat? You know? So, you know, cutting out the carbs, the sugars, the stuff that you do crave. As soon as those cravings went, I started to find my relationship with food improved because I was only eating when I was really hungry. And even if I ate beyond when I was hungry, there was only so much I could eat because it was just meat and eggs.
Yeah.
So in a sense, it really worked for me. And I lost 3 stone in a couple of months, and I got into the best shape of my life pretty quick. I had a 6-pack come through for the first time, and it was like, oh my God, it was just this eye-opening thing. And that's probably when I plunged myself straight into, you know, the fitness industry in terms of, you know, opening my eyes to what was out there. And that's the age I was kind of, you know, looking at social media and absorbing that. And I think probably an amalgamation of looking into social media and, you know, having that realization, that transformation feeling, going from A to B and seeing the contrast and feeling the difference. It was like, wow, there's actually a whole world dedicated to this as well.
I'm not find your calling necessarily.
In many senses, yeah. I certainly found, I mean, throughout, I think transformational changes, whether they be fitness related, health related, psychology related, you are going to find more and more about yourself anyway. So I wouldn't necessarily say I found my calling, but I found more out about myself, you know, and it was mainly a confidence thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was the kid that never wanted to take his top off. I was the kid at 15 that if you went in the swimming pool, I'd probably want to wear a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wouldn't because, you know, I'd get taken the piss out of, taking the mick out of, sorry.
You can't swear, don't worry.
I'm going to try and keep it PG. That's my professional, my professional brain, but you shouldn't swear on a podcast, mate. So yeah, going from that to being fully confident to just take my top off at the beach, it was an insane contrast of confidence. I think I would certainly say I got addicted to that feeling.
Yeah. And
that was what kind of like started it for me. That was like, right, I'm a fitness guy now. Yeah. Because this feeling, I don't want it to go.
Because that sort of answers my question, but I want to sort of tune into it a little bit more. Is you've just said there you was the kid that didn't want to, you know, take your top off, didn't really want to, not sort of be seen for what your body was when you were younger. But then, you know, you got this confidence and then you went into bodybuilding and then bodybuilding competitions. I mean, how does that, you know, how did that come about? How did you think, right, this is the natural step?
I think, well, there was a lot of space and time in between that, to be fair. So when I got into the best shape of my life, I was turning about 16, right? And then the lockdown hit. Yeah. There was all that going on, and me and a mate of mine, Dom, shout out to Dom, we started doing like kind of like calisthenics training. So a lot of stuff on bars. We actually made like an outdoor, we made an outdoor gym in a woods that was like, it was just random space and scam, like really random. Yeah. And we were like, yo, this could be a really cool place. And we used to like just hang out there and stuff like that. And it was great space. So we had like bars, we had dip bars. We were making these different things that we could do that sort of stuff on. And my shape was just getting better and better and better. And I was really into it. I was kind of just living in the moment, really, with that sort of stuff. I wouldn't say I was consuming much social media. It wasn't that, you know, like I wasn't looking at all these different people. I was kind of just watching calisthenics athletes thinking, wow, that's really cool. I want to be able to do that. That's a cool feat of strength. And they look good while they're doing it. So they do that. They look like that. I'm going to do that and look like that. That stuff looks cool. It's impressive. It's, you know, it's feats of strength. And then as lockdown came out, I started probably paying more attention to my physio. I was just like, damn, I've got really skinny legs.
I feel you, mate. I've got shifting legs with that.
Bro, I still feel that same way now, and I don't think I have skinny legs anymore. And I was like, right, coming out of lockdown, I was like, I want to find a gym. And I found Volt Gym. And this was the old Volt Gym. This was the 1.0. And so about 16, 17 we are now. And this is when I was about to start college. So this was like, the whole COVID thing was obviously written education off and stuff. So I actually got predicted grades for my GCSEs. Because I grinded my butt off until like mock exams, smashed my mocks. And then that's when I got into fitness, and I completely just went, scrap this school stuff. This doesn't make me happy. I'm going to get into fitness. And then I got my predicted results anyway. So I kind of just stopped revising, stopped caring. and I got my predicted result.
Focus on the six pack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Six pack over grades always.
How was that? So I work in the university,
Yeah.
and we dealt with the ramifications of the predicted grades, which was interesting. But I've actually never spoke to someone who, you know, lived with that firsthand. What was that like to find out that it was sort of like like you said, you grinded for these marks, you put in all this hard work, and it was like, actually, there you go. Was it annoying or was it a relief?
For me, it was a relief, but I think that was based on my position and my situation, because I got so sick of school, and it was keeping me in a state of, some may call it depression, some may call it just low, and I was just so sick of that, and so sick and unhappy with myself, that kind of education and doing all that was kind of just making that worse. It was taking away from the time I could delegate to improving myself and feeling better about myself. And that was so important for me to feel better about myself, and grades were a hindrance to that. It was, I wanted to push them aside, and it almost like I probably tied the issue to them, even though the issue was within myself, obviously, looking back at it. So when I got that news, I was relieved, because I had sacked pretty much everything off. Yeah. And if anything, I was kind of just stressing, going, I've dropped all this revision and stuff. I'd been obsessed from like the age of year 7. So, we're starting high school with getting A stars and this and that. So for me, it was kind of, it was the fairy tale ending of physiques for me.
All that burden had sort of been a instantaneous relief.
It was a huge relief for me. But like I say, that's situational. I'd stopped and I'd gone, do you know what? Whatever happens, I'm not bothered anymore. So for me, it was a massive relief.
Yeah. So going back to bodybuilding, you mentioned we're going to. Sorry, we're here for the tangents, man. This is what we're in store for sure.
I'm the final boss tangent.
Yeah,
I'm the tangent final boss. Sorry, man.
This could be a duo final boss, because I go down rabbit holes in any sense of the word. But
let me talk about the Illuminati.
I hope so. There's got to be some new world.
That's a good sign. It's a good sign. It's a good sign.
Some tinfoil hat disclaimers going on as I do the introduction for this one. But yeah, I mean, from obviously not blowing smoke up your ass or anything like that. I mean, I know you sat in front of me, but I've always thought it from seeing your page and just speaking to you in passing. You're a very, you are a deep thinker, and you sort of self-reflect. You can see that very well, but you've done this from a very young age, and something that I find, and I literally did a podcast, a solo one about it, that I don't think I had that capacity or capability until probably the last 5 years, maybe 5-6 years. So, to have that ability and that sort of mindset to be a critical thinker of yourself and your surroundings and what's going on. You obviously went into bodybuilding where you have to be so, strict, dedicated, sacrifice a lot. How did that impact your arguably your formative years, being a teenager, being in these bodybuilding competitions? How did you navigate that socially to be sort of the sacrifice involved, but I also want to be the best version of myself? If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get you entirely. Bodybuilding prep was life-changing for sure. Now, the cliche kind of thing of saying it's the hardest thing I've ever done is pretty sad, because realistically, in the grand scheme of things, there's much harder things that happen to people in life than doing a bodybuilding prep that you chose to do.
So the hardest thing that's happened to you is the hardest thing that has happened to you. Yes. You can't compare it necessarily to anything else.
As my mum likes to say, my mum's a psychotherapist, the map is not the territory. Your life experience is based on your life experience.
Yeah.
Just because somebody else is going through something and you think, oh, that's easy to go through. It's not at all.
No.
It's all based on your own perspective. At the end of the day, life is perspective. Prep was very hard for me. As I said to you, growing up as a massive foodie. And I think navigating through my teen years, it was all about getting away from who everybody thought I was.
Yeah,
and perception. I thought it was this perception of this nerdy, chubby kid, this intelligent lad. And even though growing up, I was still a personality, I was still a funny lad. I was kind of friends with everyone.
Yeah.
I'd like at school, I was friends with I look back at school with kind of fond memories because it was fun. And that's just life, you know. Obviously, I'm not one of those guys like F school, man.
Yeah.
Screw that stuff. You know, it's part of life, so you appreciate and accept it. I was kind of friends with everyone. I was friends with the nerds. I was friends with the lads who'd probably be seen as like the bullies.
Yeah.
I was friends with all the jocks. You know,
the ultimate middle level.
I've always been a very much kind of jack of all trades guy. I've always had me hands in different baskets. You know, or certainly my personality's been that way, in a sense. So with prep, I think it was subconsciously, I didn't realize this, but it was probably a massive feat of representation, proving to myself and everybody else that I wasn't this nerdy fat kid. I'm the fitness guy.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that looks damn good on a stage, you know. Subconsciously, that's what I think it was. I think at the time I didn't really realize that. And I realized pretty immediately after prep that that's what it was. Like I say, I'm very kind of self-reflective. For me, prep was proving that I could do something that I really didn't want to do. And like I say, I love food, always loved food growing up. And I always hated dieting, always hated restricting food.
Yeah.
And food was always a crutch for me, right? So it was always a dopamine hit, or it was a comfort mechanism. It was I've always had an emotional relationship with food. And I probably shouldn't have done prep for that reason, because I came out the back end of it really struggling. And still now I struggle, man. So for me, it was like, right, I love food. Let's completely restrict that. Let's make it really hard. And I want to get in the best shape of my life. I want to see what I'm capable of. And at the time as well, because this was when I was about 18, I'd done powerlifting competitions. I'd done that competitively. And I was doing really well in that. I was obsessed with powerlifting, and I really wanted to kind of take it further. And I think my coach at the time, Mr. Josh Pearson.
Big Josh.
He doesn't actually coach anymore. So,
but what a boy.
Yeah, he's still a great guy. He was like a big brother to me. He kind of took me under his wing, and I really wanted to be everything Josh embodied, this big, strong guy who was, you know, competitive in powerlifting. And I got addicted to it. It was that, you know, but it was also, I think maybe the reason I got addicted to it as well was not only the kind of stigma around it, being strong and, you know, being an athlete. It was that setting a goal, right? Now I want to hit this number. Now I want to hit that number. So it was that, it was, you know, there was an element of direction there. And I think that's probably why it was so easy to get into it. And then I faced like a knee injury. I had a knee injury for like 2.5 years, didn't know what it was, realized it was biomechanical, just a leg length discrepancy that was completely throwing me off. But the deeper I got into powerlifting, the more weights I was lifting, the heavier it got, the more it became an issue. So after a while, and after seeing different naturopaths, osteopaths and things like that, they were telling me, look, man, this is really damaging for your body. Your body's not built for this. Generically speaking, but also like individually speaking, at my physiology, in terms of like weak points, things like that. And because my spine's always been messed up since playing rugby as a young age. I'm sure you can appreciate that. That messed me up massively. So it was kind of like, right, well, powerlifting isn't the answer. It's putting too much toll on my body. I'm now kind of out of time. Right? I'm now reaching end of my teenage years. These numbers aren't impressive anymore. This isn't, you know, this doesn't look good. And I think maybe, you know, a massive element alongside the direction it provided as a powerlifter at teenage age, because I was so strong for my age, and because I had Josh in my ear going, look, man, you could be, you know, really damn good at this. You could compete internationally, worlds, Europes, whatever. And that was what I had my heart set on, because I'd watched Josh do it. I was like, I want to do that. That's sick. And kind of, it was the element of being significantly good at something and being noticed for that, and being noticed once again for being that athletic guy. Like, look at me, look how well I'm doing at this.
And that fuse them kids in school.
100%.
Yeah, I feel that, actually, man. I've got a lot of relation to that.
I think as well, alongside that, being the sporty kid, there's a massive thing to be said, and you may appreciate this. Is you've got the kids that aren't sporty, right? You've got the kids that are really sporty. All they do is play football all day, every day. Their dad pushes them to play football nonstop, whatever.
You get picked first,
for example. Yeah, the ones that got picked first, the ones that look like the prime athletic kids. And then you've got the kids in the middle, like myself, who would have been the chunky kid that didn't look necessarily like he did much, big kid, but he also loved sports just as much as them, if not more.
Put a shift in.
But you couldn't see it visibly.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like that being, you know, thinking you are something, but it not being visible to everyone else was probably harder than being the person that wasn't sporty at all.
Yeah.
So for me, I think I've always had this massive kind of underlying insecurity that everybody needs my kind of athletic side, my sportiness, you know, that quality. I need that to be visible.
Yeah.
So I've always, you know, engaged in the more extreme sports.
Yeah.
So yeah, from powerlifting, having that knee injury, I kind of realized, you know what, this is going to be really hard to navigate. I'll get into bodybuilding. Because it was then feeding back into the whole principle of watching your body change, getting addicted to the progress, getting addicted to the results. Before I knew it, at about 18, 19, I was getting a lot of external validation, not only from pockets of social media, but people around me at the gym, because my progress was going so high, so fast. And that's mainly due to hormone optimization, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, I got addicted to that progress, and I think I got addicted to the validation I was getting. I was getting big, and I was getting big quick.
Yeah.
I was making a lot of progress very fast. And at 18 years old, I was an impressively large kid, and pretty damn jacked, if I do say so. So I was getting this external validation from people, you know, people who thought I was on steroids, people asking me if I was on steroids in the gym, people telling me I look great. And that validation, I think, spurred me to get deeper into bodybuilding, right? And when it came to doing a prep, it was, I think, subconsciously, my main driver for doing a prep was, once again, being recognized for being extreme.
Yeah.
In that area. You know what, man? Like, I'm sure we'll talk about it lots, but and as I have the last 20 minutes, but I'm very happy to openly admit my insecurities, man.
Yeah,
I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I don't. Like, you know, if you can't submit to your and understand your own insecurities, you're never going to get past them.
And you're always just sort of battling them. You're always sort of trying to deny them. I mean,
100%.
From what you've just said over the last 20 minutes, I think I can connect to it a lot. I think similar sort of insecurities that I felt and feel from school. I wasn't necessarily the chunky one. I was more the skinnier one, the bag of bones one.
Okay.
And then sort of I went to that opposite end just to be like, I can be bigger, I can be this, I can be that. And then
very similar then.
I blew up the opposite way. So when I was playing rugby, when I got to like 19, 20, I was like 18 and a half stone. So I was a big boy, but I carried it well. Big motto style. But because I'm tall, people were like, oh, you're not that heavy. But like, I was like struggling getting upstairs. I was like, I've never been that heavy before because I've been so skinny.
Yeah.
And then, but I was like, why am I doing this to myself? And I was like, oh, because I was always that, you know, the bag of bones, you could see his ribs, them sort of things. And I've definitely been in that position where you mentioned it there about, you know, going to the extremes and wanting to be, you know, not necessarily seen as the best, but I feel like we're quite similar to our mindsets just through talking to you, is that
people notice extreme.
Exactly.
They can't ignore it.
No, 100%.
That's why we can chase it. It's an easy option, isn't it?
Perfect. And if you strive to be the best, then you get noticed, and then you can do that F you to them kids in school who thought you was that, you know, type B, type C sort of person who was just like, you was never quite good enough to be A.
Yeah.
And I think, again, that intrinsic motivation, which is also sort of extrinsic because you're doing it for other people, but my internal motivation was like, I'll show you. And that's probably why, you know, you mentioned there about being a jack of all trades, very similar myself, sort of go from things.
Rugby lads always are, man.
Yeah.
They kind of have to be.
100%, because it's such I think rugby's been such a massive factor in making me who I am, you know, because it's a thug's game played by gentlemen. That's how people word it. Do you know what I mean? But you have to be hard, mate. You have to be ingrained.
I can't tell you how much I miss playing rugby.
Yeah, and you fantasize about it, don't you? You almost romanticize how good rugby was. And then I went back and then I shattered my shoulder. So I'd warned you, don't do it. But just keep romanticizing it in your head. But I found when I was younger, I had a pretty cushy life growing up. You know, mum and dad are brilliant people. I had a good set of friends, but I was always that middle ground. And I always played best when I could channel that, you know, get angry, get that and use it. But as I got older and life gets a bit, you know, you get a bit more challenge with life. I found when I was older, I was a much better rugby player because I had sort of things to take into Saturday morning from the week that had, you know, annoyed me. And I could channel it back. So I always think that some of the best rugby players are them who have, you know, harder upbringings and things like that.
Oh, for sure, mate.
Yeah.
I was speaking about this the other day to my therapist. I had a therapy session for the first time yesterday.
Class.
Whilst my mum's a psychotherapist. can't let your own mother.
Yeah, don't want to open some things up to your mother there.
No, don't get me wrong. Me and my mum are very close. We have a very open relationship. In one hand, my mum's kind of like my best mate.
Yeah.
You know, we can have a laugh and a joke, and she'll, you know, call me names. And then on the other hand, you know, I'm very respectful of the fact she's a fantastic mother, and I wouldn't be where I am without her. But yeah, I was speaking about this yesterday, and it was. I remember when I first started getting into the gym, getting into training, and I had that realization, like yourself, that I had, you know, quite a cushy upbringing in a sense. I mean, I grew up without a father, but my mum was such a good mother.
So solid.
Yeah, so fucking solid. Apologies, mum. I know I swore, but it was, you know, it was for you.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah. I remember, like, yeah, when I was about 15, and it was when I was doing pads with Luke, right? As you know, Mr. Luke Blakemore. That was the start of my fitness journey. Literally just doing boxing pads, you know, every week. I can't remember how many times, like 2 or 3 times a week. And I was loving it because I was getting all that anger out. It's like it opened up a can of worms. It's oh, I can get it back out again. Now I'm not playing rugby anymore. Because I got put off rugby because I went to SEPA private school, SEPA prep school, not private school. It is a private school, but SEPA prep school. And I got, obviously, you know, that's massively rugby orientated, hugely. And I had quite a bad experience there that led me to kind of come away from it. And I think I attached rugby to that. So we'll just leave that for a bit kind of thing. But yeah, I remember when I started getting into boxing with Luke, and he'll know this, but I started getting this love for Mike Tyson because he was the strongest, baddest.
Yeah.
You know, Mike Tyson was the most feared guy on the planet. He was an animal in the ring. Every bloke looks at Mike Tyson and goes, damn, what an animal. Yeah. You know, as blokes, we can always appreciate those athletic freaks, those monsters, because we all have dreams every now and then. We grew up with Hollywood action films and things like that. We all like to think of ourselves as being possibly that guy.
Yeah, the next Dragon.
Whether we've got insecurities or not, we're blokes. I think that's kind of embedded 100%. In us. But Mike Tyson was like that epitome of like raging testosterone. Yeah. And when I was starting to get into the boxing, I was like, damn, I want to box like Mike Tyson. I want to be as good as that. You know, it was always, you know, being a kid, you kind of, I don't know whether this just applies to me or us two or, you know, everyone. You always want to be the best at what you do. You want to stand out. And I think obviously that ties into all my elements of my fitness journey is standing out and being the best at it. And I started getting wound up into that with boxing. And I was like, damn, I want to be good at this because I know I can hit hard. I'm a big kid. I want to be really good. I want to be like Mike Tyson. I remember looking into his background, his story, and obviously it's horrific. Yeah. Mike Tyson's upbringing was awful, man. You know, his mum was sleeping with men to make money in the bed that he was laying in.
Yeah.
It's messed up, man.
Such a dark story.
And I remember being 15 and being like, damn, I need some of that. It's like, I need a rough, too late now.
Yeah.
I wish my mum had brought me up, beat me. I wish my mum had treated me like crap.
Wish I could have channeled into that.
So I could be an animal.
Yeah.
So I always had this thing in the back of my head. I was like, well, I can't be the best at that because I've had a cushy upbringing. Because I've not got that drive. The only thing driving me is to be the best and to not be a fatty. That was kind of like the instant thought process. So, you know, I remember at 15 when that first hit me, I was like, wish I had a really hard upbringing.
Yeah.
And while I like, if I speak to my mum about it, she's like, you had it tough. And I'm like, nah, not compared to Mike Tyson. I'd always compare it. She'd be very kind of conscious of my upbringing. And I suppose that's what a good mother does, is they're very conscious of, you know, how they brought you up. She always thinks she could have been better or she could have been better. I don't think she possibly could have. But, you know, she would always say to me, you have had a hard upbringing, you know, you've got stuff going on. And it was like at 15, I was like, nah, I want that Mike Tyson upbringing. I want that really messed up upbringing. So I've got all that drive to become a superhero of a human, a demigod. And obviously that wears off.
But you got the holistic side of it, which I think has played you, you know, massively. Well, obviously
it does play a big part. Yeah.
And I think obviously you've spoke about your mum so highly. She's like a fantastic woman. And,
you need to get her on this.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, she sounds like someone who'd be good for the podcast. I'm sure she could dissect me in an instance and pick some of the insecurities and flaws that I'm obviously shining out there. But I think obviously it makes perfect sense now talking to you and getting an understanding the holistic side, your mum's background, her profession and things like that. It's obviously impacted you so massively and made you this very self-reflective, deep thinking person, which is, you know, brilliant. I feel like more people should be like that from an early age. And
it's a double-edged sword though, man.
oh yeah, I can imagine that, you know, now I'm more of a self-reflector, deep thinker. Like, I'd say that, you know, it can be across the bar. You can find yourself going in the opposite direction of overthinking, and, you know, you have to bring in these routines and habits that sort of negate that sometimes, to be not to go into full spiral, full self rabbit hole.
Yeah, when you mentioned that was when you mentioned that, because I hadn't looked into the stuff that you were doing and stuff like that. And I remember when you asked me on the podcast and you said about daily habits, and I'd written a book on that, and how that can shape your life. I was like, yeah, I want to be on this guy's podcast. Because that's so true.
Yeah, massive.
And I think it is true, especially if you're a self-analytical person, and you want to be the best you can be. You want to be successful, especially if you've got an overactive mind, right?
100%.
And I'd say I certainly do. And whilst I say that, you know, being a really deep thinker, I remember my boss, Ali, shout out Ali, one of the owners of Volt. I'm very, very close with him. He's kind of like a big brother figure to me.
Yeah.
We've always had a very close connection. I remember him saying to me, he said, I think he kind of shook his head, because I'd probably conversed to a level that was just like, mate, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Come on. That kind of level of deep, right? And I remember Ali's
blind DMT experience.
Yeah, that's me, man. DMT at 10 in the morning on a Tuesday. I just take myself. I don't need the DMT. It was just, I'll pretend, just so you don't feel like I'm crazy. I'll pretend I'm taking it. Yeah, and I remember him saying, he was like, Sam, you've got to be one of the deepest thinking people I've ever met. And that's when I was like, yeah, I'm very deep thinking. And it is a double-edged sword, man, because sometimes I'll sit there and it's like, what I'd give to just be blissfully ignorant, just to live a bit more normally, like maybe somebody else who does things kind of because they don't have the awareness there, and maybe feel that dopamine hit, or maybe do that thing that makes them feel good for 5 minutes.
TikTok bread.
Yeah, it would be nice. Sometimes obviously, you know, what you don't have, you wish you did. So we always want what we don't have, right? We always, think we want what we don't have. And so I think having such an active mind, being so self-analytical and self-aware, you do just sometimes just like, damn, man, I wish I could just switch off and just be like, not like everybody else, because like, I know I can see
a lower frequency. Yeah.
Like that you can be blissfully ignorant. That'd be really nice. But then at the same time, you're like, but I wouldn't be who I am today if I had that ability.
Do you have any escapes that do that? Because I'm thinking about what I do, and I'm like, gaming and reading for me, like my brain just sort of.
I'll be honest, man. My biggest issue, and especially at the minute, I've got a holiday next week, and I'll be honest, man. I'm worried, because the last time I went on holiday, it was bad. In terms of answering that question, it's a good question, but I'm awful for that, man. I find it so hard to switch off. That's why I burn out every 5 minutes. Yeah. Like a constant ongoing cycle. It's kind of what I'm trying to work on, through therapy as well. I'm sure that'll start to improve. But it's constant 100 miles an hour. It's always kind of been like that for me. And I wouldn't necessarily say 100 miles an hour, but it's you never turning the engine off.
The treadmill's always on gradient 5.
Yeah. And it is. And constantly running on willpower as well. You end up to a point where you're just constantly running on willpower, and that itself is far more draining. Like when I was competing and when I was on prep, back end of prep, I was nailing about 4 or 5 Red Bulls and 3 or 4 coffees a day. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I was at that stage, that was because I was producing no testosterone. My kidneys were failing, probably because of the energy drinks and the overuse of natural fat burners. Yeah. I'm not going to go into that.
Another day.
Interesting coaching experiences. Let's just leave it at that. That was the main reason why, but I was just running on willpower, and I don't think I really wanted, or I didn't know what I wanted out of that. So when you are running on willpower all the time and running at 100 miles an hour, it's so damn hard to switch off. And I think a lot of people out there can relate to that.
100%.
You know, I've got mates that are like that, and it's hard. I think it's whether you have that kind of, you know, a lot of people do have opportunities to switch off. I kind of got to a point after bodybuilding where I started really like focusing, going, right, I'm going to really, it was after my shoulder accident, man, because that gave me time and it forced me to reflect. That was Mother Nature saying, you need to slow down, you need to stop for a minute, and you need to just.
A sign from the universe.
Yeah. And I'm so glad it happened, man. It was a horrible time mentally for me, really hard, but it really helped me. That's when my growth started going from like to sky kind of high. And it was not to be arrogant, but it did. It was like a cascade effect. You know, every 2 months I'd be a refreshed version of myself.
Yeah.
And I've gone completely off.
Well, I've got an interjection there. So as you've just mentioned there about being forced to almost naturally rest, naturally recover.
Oh, sorry, you were talking about stopping.
Yeah. So like, I think that's the issue with grind culture. And
massive, bro.
It's like,
it's such an issue.
Yeah. So like, just rest and you will be a better version. Like,
oh man,
don't
so true.
Doing what you're necessarily doing, but incorporate rest.
Oh man,
not everyone's a 1%er.
I think that's probably the most important thing to be said at this current time. Whilst, you know, there could be more people working their asses off, focusing on a better future.
More people could be working harder.
100%.
100%.
But that push of that does come with the issue of, no, you need to stop sometimes. Don't get me wrong, there's people who are die-hard grind masters, grind final bosses.
Yeah, slow big dog.
Yeah, never rest, you know. And I say this is a really big issue, and I agree with that because I really struggle with it, man. Like, I don't know how to stop. You know, I've removed so many crutches from my life based off of health, and pursuing, you know, being successful and you know, living a virtuous life by cutting out drink, by cutting out smoking, vaping, you know, all these different crutches that people my age might use. Like I say, smoking, drinking, vaping, you know, one night stands, just
any of them,
anything like that is essentially just a dopamine hit. Whilst you are stopping while you're doing it, it's a dopamine hit and it's a crutch. And after my shoulder accident, I removed everything. And that's why I think, well, no, after prep, I kind of started removing these things, and I got to a point where they were getting less and less, to a point where probably about 4 weeks ago, no, since after my shoulder accident, they all stopped. I had no crutches whatsoever left. There was nothing being utilized at all. And that's when my relationship with food went back downhill. Continued to go downhill again, because I had nothing coming in. So the only comfort, the only stop, the only thing that allowed me to relax was food.
Yeah.
Because number one, you can do it very easily. Nobody notices it.
Yeah.
Number two, it's an everyday task that everybody does. Nobody looks at food and goes, "Why are you eating, man?"
Yeah.
We all eat.
You have to.
And as a gym guy, you know, it's very easy to excuse eating 5 times a day.
Yeah.
Oh man, I want to bulk, bro. Yeah, I'm trying to build muscle, man. This is why I'm eating 10 meals a day with 5 snacks in between. So it's
2 liters of full sugar Cokes to go with it.
It's easy to use food as a coping mechanism, and I don't think it's talked about enough. And that's what I'm realizing with it. I watched a section of a podcast, and I can't remember the guy's name. He's the guy that used to sit in the chair.
Mike Isworth.
No. A guy that used to sit on a chair of Pointless, you know, with the computer. You know that guy? Lovely guy. I think it was his name, Richard.
Richard Osman.
Yes.
Yeah.
After listening to that, I was like, damn, I'm not the only one. And he spoke about how binge eating disorders, things like that, which I still struggle with. It's a massive issue because it's not like alcohol, right? You can tell when somebody's had too much alcohol because they're pissed.
Yeah.
When somebody's had too much food, you can't tell.
No.
It's such a silent one. It's silent. You can be silent and struggle with it, you know? And in realizing that is my switch off, and that's why I still struggle with food, because I have no other switch offs. If I try and go on my PS5 now, I bought a PS5 on prep, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna start relaxing. Yeah. And I don't know why. When I was a child, I was an addict. I loved it. You know, favorite game, Skyrim, right? I had to say that. You know, I loved gaming, and when I went back to it on prep, I couldn't. I spent half an hour on a game. I'd be like, I need to get off this.
Giving you that buzz.
This is draining me. This is being unproductive. And I know it's not. You know, I could sit here right now and say gaming's not necessarily unproductive, but it depends on your perspective. If your perspective is, no, this is downtime, this is great, and it relaxes you and it's a switch off, then it does work. It goes back to perspective again. If your perspective is to be a 1% master of the grind, I can't possibly game, then of course you're going to sit down and for half an hour gaming is going to feel crap. But if you're under the mindset of, you know, being in that 1% of grinders, this word sounds wrong. We need to use something else. What's a different word for this? Not grinding. We don't want to say that.
No, hustle's a terrible word. Should we just use it for now?
Hustle,
Definitely better than grinders.
Grind master, grinders, grinding.
I feel like a very odd sponsorship deal.
Manscaped inbound.
Grinder.
I'm gonna go down that route. Dating apps. I think it is. I think so much. The more I kind of move on through life, the more I realize life is perspective, and psychology is a huge part of it. And that's why I find psychology so interesting and things like that. That's why I submit to therapy, because I thought, whether or not, you know, remove the stigma of therapy, if I'm opening my mind and I'm exploring that, then I'm going to become a better person. I'm going to have more tools in my toolbox, because psychology and perspective is everything. And I'm slowly realizing that. And we'll come back to that when it comes to hormone optimization and things like that, because that plays a huge part with your hormones, the way your body functions, your psychology, placebo, all of it is massive. So perspective, once again, you could be a 1% hustle master. That sounds awful, man. That's really not going to gain clips.
No,
hustle master. You know, if you have that mindset of, no, I can still gain a fortune and become really successful if I do half an hour of gaming a week or 2 hours of gaming a week, then it'll work. It's so perspective driven, man. I would love to kind of sit down and game, and I do it once, maybe every 2 weeks, and it kind of forces me back to, right now, I just want to sit here and snack. I want to sit here and eat. So for me, when you ask that question, you know, what is my switch off? To be honest with you, man, it's been food, and it's been food for a long time. And trying to get back in shape again, I slowly am. Battling that is so draining. Once again, it's just constant willpower. And I'm so drained on a daily basis, man. It's very hard, because I'm trying, like, I try all these other switch offs. I try reading, I try doing this, I try doing that. And it always just comes back to, you know what, I'm falling into this relaxed state, and I just want to eat.
Square peg, circle hole. It's filling that void.
Nothing. And you know what, man? Like, I won't say it because it's kind of more private. But allowing those dopaminergic hits, not necessarily conventional ones that you might expect me to say, like smoking or drinking, things like that. Allowing those in, that because I have a higher awareness of certain things, because I've got a psychotherapist for a mum, and understanding what impacts on psychology and things like that. Like I say, I won't go into it because it would be a rabbit hole, but allowing maybe one or two of them that are very much seen as normal. And most people wouldn't suspect it to be a dopaminergic hit kind of thing, or validation thing. Allowing that back in has helped massively. So in a sense, I'm gaining perspective, because I'm not being that person that's necessarily deep thinking and completely self-analytical. I might be aware that I'm doing something, but as long as I keep saying to myself, no, do you know what? That's all right. It's better than what you're currently doing now, because what you're currently doing now is defeating you, kind of thing. So you're not blissfully ignorant, because you're kind of aware, but at the same time, it's totally normal, man. And there's not many people out there that are, it's not many people out there that are aware that that might be an ignorant thing to do and engage in. And that's helping me massively. But life's a journey, man.
100%. And I think it's almost that if you're not learning, or you're not changing, you're staying stagnant. You know what I mean? You see that we go back to these people that were probably taking the piss out of us in school, and, you know, with the high achievers in sport and things like that. The thing is, a lot of them people now, rightly or wrongly, you know, I'm not saying any names or accusing them, but they're still the same people they was when they were 14 years old. They're still living off that memory, being, I was the cock of the school, I was the hardest lad in my school.
Massive.
They're still living off that, because they found enough justification, I assume, to be like, this is who I am and this is who I always want to be. You know, people like ourselves, we can change. I imagine, not speaking for you, but I know from my perspective is that 18 months ago I was a different person. 6 months ago I was a different person.
Same, man. Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing, but it's just because I'm still not content with what I want to be, and I want to be a better version of that. So to be better, things have to change, because if nothing changes, nothing changes. So,
and I think that's when I look back and I'm so grateful to have the insecurities I have, to have had the upbringing that I had, the childhood that I had, the issues that I've gained, because I'm so lucky that they feed into not being content with myself, so pushing myself for more. Don't get me wrong, human species, their nature is to progress, their nature is to improve. But I'm so grateful that I almost played or succumbed to my insecurities, even though I was kind of aware of it, because luckily that does feed into not being content with who I am, which I believe is wrong, because we should all love ourselves, right? Yeah. The path to enjoying life is loving yourself. And I currently don't. You know, I struggle very hard. My therapist said to me yesterday, I kind of explained a few things, and she let me talk, as therapists do. And she said, you do realize within all of that, you do realize what the massive message is you hate yourself. You are horrible to yourself. And that needs to change. You're literally, you're your own worst enemy. And I think, yes, that comes with a self-analytical nature and stuff like that, and that being a double-edged sword, going back to that. But I think the true meaning of life is loving yourself so that you can give others life. And whilst I am pursuing that, I think as well, at least we have that issue. At least that's the issue at play here, because it's keeping us progressing. It's keeping us proving. It's keeping us improving. It's keeping us gaining life experience. It's keeping us striving for more, even though it's born, I know for myself, it's born out of an issue potentially, but I'm so glad it's that issue and not another one. Yeah.
And it goes back to perspective again.
Sit back and reflect on that and go, damn, I'm messed up, but I'm glad I'm this kind of messed up.
And I am where I am, and I'm in the position where I am. And again, if you didn't have self-reflection, that's when
gratitude, man,
100%, it's a massive thing. But that's when, you know, them people who, unfortunately, I know I've got it in here for us to talk about and stuff like that, they go to that level of almost there is no return. You know, and men specifically, with my job, you know, we're doing a lot now for trying to target male students and male staff and get them talking about well-being and you know, the feelings. There's this misconception, I believe, that, you know, men don't want to talk about it, and I believe men do want to talk about it. They just don't have the platform or the space to necessarily do so. Because if you look at all the statistics in society and everything, it's all there to see that there's an issue, you know, with men's mental health, men's well-being, things like that. And then a lot of it does connect to things like testosterone levels, what they're doing, what 100%. They consume, and things like that. So obviously a massive thing that I wanted to talk to you about was that, you know, you talk a lot about hormone optimization, holistic approach. So what are them connections that you felt, you know, with your own journey and your own experiences of feeling low, having your own issues? Because you've mentioned there when you was bodybuilding that you optimized hormones, things like that. Can you explain a bit more for people who might not necessarily have any understanding about that?
This is where I get juicy now. This is the USP coming through now. Hormone optimization. So I kind of, coming from a holistic background, like I said, when I was 15, I only stumbled across this because at 18, 19, I was like, damn, I'm seeing all these people online. They look insane. I really want to look like that. Like David Lade was my hero, right? And whilst I've always been very open-minded and curious, and I've never gone, that guy's definitely not natural, or that guy, you know, I've always been open-minded to, I'm very much of the opinion, if you can imagine it, it's happening somewhere in the world, man. Yeah. Seriously. I don't care what anybody says. If you can fathom it, somewhere it's happening, somewhere it's happened, whatever. I'm very open-minded and curious. So for me, I've never jumped the gun and gone, right, Mike O'Hearn's definitely on steroids. We don't know enough about science and life to know that Mike O'Hearn definitely isn't natural. Maybe he's a 0.1% of genetics.
Bodybuilding.
Exactly, bro. Like, be open-minded. It's not likely. based on research, statistics, anecdotal data, and what we can see across the field, it's not likely. But don't write it off. Be open-minded, okay? So yeah, I kind of had this mindset of, right, at 18, when I started getting into the whole bodybuilding thing, started consuming it, you know, started looking at Arnold Schwarzenegger, bro watched Pumping Iron, and suddenly it was like, damn, I want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. I remember reading his biography, you know, seeing different, I remember Simeon Panda was probably one of the first ones I saw. He's obviously a genetic freak. Whether he's enhanced or not. And I remember seeing these different characters, and Alan von Moger was a massive one as well. I loved that guy. I loved his personality. He was different, unique. I still love him now. He's been through some hardship and stuff, and media is certainly not played in his favor. And he's been through some shit, as we all do in life. So I don't judge that. But he was very much my inspiration because he looked like a god. Yeah, he looked like a god, and he was funny. And I could kind of relate to that. He was quirky, he had something different about him. He wasn't afraid to risen with the tism. You know what I mean? He wasn't afraid to be seen to be that guy. He was unique, and I gelled with that, and I went, right, he's unique like me. I want to look like that as well. And as I started getting in his sort of content, I understood, you know, he was taking steroids, and possibly quite a lot. He was very open about it, always was. And whilst I wanted to look like that, there was this deep moral belief that, no, I can't take steroids. I can't do that.
Especially from a holistic background,
exactly.
I imagine. And
that would go against
the
all
ramifications.
That would go against all of that. And obviously I understand sitting here now that steroids are such a risky game. So risky. Jeez, man. Like, for me, it's enough knowing that my testicles are going to shrink to the size of a nut.
Tic Tacs.
If Tic Tacs, bro, if I took them from hearing anecdotal stuff from people I know that are on them. That alone is like, man, that's just your manhood gone. You're relying on synthetics to still be a male. And that for me is enough to put me off, right? Without all the other mess that goes on.
It's like the mental health of it.
Oh, just all of it.
The side effects.
That's without even getting to that. I'm just talking nutsacks. That's enough to put me off.
If I'm talking priority, I'm talking
my nuts are really important. And plus, obviously, I really want to have kids. Like, family is creating a family is super important to me. That's what I strive to do. What I do. That's why I strive to be a better person, so I can be a great father one day. That's my main driver. Or at least I say it is. I think it is. So yeah, I saw you know, these people that looked insane. I went, right, I want to get as jacked as humanly possible without taking steroids. How do I do that? Right. Okay. What do steroids do? So typically, you know, testosterone. Or synthetic testosterone, anything exogenous, is going to increase blood testosterone circulation in the body. It's not going to increase your testosterone. It's going to mean yours stops because you're now using a different source. It's now coming from a needle. It's not coming from your balls, hence why they shrink. So I was like, right, I need to elevate my testosterone. Okay, what levels do somebody on testosterone usually read up on, you know, on blood tests? And it's in the thousands, right? It's like anywhere from like 2,000 to 6,000, 10,000, whatever. It's a broad range. And us as men, naturally, these are what the statistics say based on averages, but we should be around 200 to 800. That's the normal range.
So they're astronomical when they're on steroids.
Steroids are astronomical. But if you look at the data, you look at the research and the rate at which testosterone has declined, 100 years ago plus, those levels were a lot higher for natural men. And if you go even further back and even further back, it would not be outlandish. In my opinion, it would not be outlandish to say that somebody like a caveman, that level of that far back, were probably sitting around 2,000 nanograms per deciliter of testosterone. Just because they're purely ancestral. And that's why I had a certain speck of respect for Liver King when he was famous. Because it was playing in with that. Obviously, there's so many issues that went on there. We all know that.
That's we don't pull the thread in the whole thing on.
God. But yeah, so that was my mindset, was right. If I can just get my testosterone as high as humanly possible, as high as naturally possible, humanly possible would be just straight in place. A lot of testosterone, a lot of needles. And as I start getting absorbed into that, I just realized that natural testosterone optimization and getting your testosterone as high as possible just meant being as holistic as possible, as far as data showed, or as far as methodology, food you consume, the way you organize your lifestyle.
Even the way you consume it, because was it Susanna Shaw? Have you heard of her about like microplastics and the effects that has on like
Oh yeah, mate.
male, like
Oh yeah.
it's mad.
Microplastics, man.
So insane.
We'll get there. Yeah. So when I realized that, I was like, right, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to do everything I can possibly manage. And this was whilst I'd finished college and I'd said, right, I don't know if I want to go to university or not. I'll take a year out. I'll work at Volt. And at the time I wasn't doing much. I was doing like 2 or 3 shifts a week. It was night shifts. So I had a lot of spare time on my plate. My mum was supporting me financially. Said, look, I'll support you for a year as you set up a coaching business. And I'm damn lucky she did. You know, like I say, my mum's an incredible woman. And without her, I wouldn't be here. So she supported me for a year. She paid for my food. So, and I took advantage of that. I did. I really did.
Boy can eat.
Yeah. Boy can eat. And my mum was on board with all of it, having been holistic herself. I'd gone from being keto and carnivore around 15. And you can imagine if I'm going to do that, then my mum's going to be on board with it, or else she'd be like, you know, you're not doing this kind of thing.
A red flag.
As parents do. Yeah. So it kind of fed back into that. And the reason I was able to do it, like I said, because my mom was supporting me financially, she was paying for my food. So I went, right, I don't have to worry about paying for my food. Therefore, I don't need to worry about how much steak costs or where I get my steak from or, you know, how much red meat I consume. Anyway, so yeah, I delved into that. I went, right, I'm going to take advantage of this. And for the next however long, I want to build as much muscle as possible, get in the best shape. And I want to build up. And that slowly translated into me starting bodybuilding properly, because I didn't really know what I was doing with my training, man. I think at the same time I was doing this, I was doing my personal training course at 17, 18. So I got into that. And I felt when I started optimizing my testosterone naturally, brother, I can't even, you walk around not only motivated, happy and energized, you walk around like a raging bull. It's incredible.
Just ready to go.
You feel, yeah, you're ready, bro. You're ready. You are ready to switch up to Mike Tyson if needs be, but you're also like a child at the same time because you're so giddy. Yeah. And I was literally like a raging bull. I remember training in the gym and it was crazy, man. I was so strong. This was when I remember benching like 150 at like 18. I was just full of beans. Life was great, you know, pretty much zero responsibilities or near enough.
Yeah.
So, you know, I had my mum paying for my food. I was only working part-time at Volt and I was developing my coaching business and trying to do a bit of social media, but kind of lacking and kind of procrastinating on that side of things because I was still very insecure. And yeah, so this comes from doing all sorts of things. So focusing on your lifestyle, whether it be even down to the clothes that you wear, man, the clothes that you wear, the aftershave or the fragrances you use, the deodorant you use, the skincare products you use, the hair products you use, the sun cream you put on, everything you put on your body or everything essentially testosterone optimization comes from considering and evaluating, or at least the starting point is to consider and evaluate everything that your body is exposed to. Because if your body's exposed to it, your body's consuming it.
Yeah, it's absorbing it in some capacity.
Exactly. Whether it's your skin, whether it's what you put in your mouth, you know, whether it's what you see, what you look at. So it goes into everything. So, I mean, I probably should have prepared myself with kind of like a tick.
Yeah.
But then that'd be pointless. I'd be giving all the goods away.
Yeah.
But I will try and kind of digress and simplify as much as possible. Yeah. But all those lifestyle factors, everything your body consumes. And now more and more I'm realizing that the psychology is actually the most important part.
Yeah.
So at 17, 18, I was obsessed. It was right. No seed oils, no processed food. If it came in a packet, I'm not having it. All my meat from a butcher, or everything was free range. It was fresh. There was ultra processed food was the demon. If I saw somebody eating McDonald's, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? How the hell could you? I was like, bro, I was Eddie Abu, but way worse. I was there before Eddie Abu was famous, bro. I remember when Eddie Abu blew up, I was like, I was doing this a year ago. I was that guy. Like, damn, why didn't I just document it?
Yeah, why didn't I just get content on this?
Yeah. So everything I was doing, you know, it was like no polyester clothing. Everything has to be 100% cotton, or, you know, train in a certain way, and you know, no masturbation. If I was gonna ejaculate, or if I was gonna do any of that, it had to be sleeping with somebody, you know, and all that stuff. So all these different elements I had going on were actually probably prime for testosterone production. And part of it I didn't realize, i.e. having the ability to only work 3 times a week. I was progressively developing my coaching business, doing a PT course. My food was being paid for. So there was zero stress on the plate.
Yeah.
Zero responsibilities, zero things to worry about. All I had to worry about, pretty much, let's just be real here, was optimizing my testosterone training. And I felt incredible. I felt amazing. My results were coming in thick and fast. Everybody was convinced I was on steroids. It was great. It was getting all this validation because of it as well. It was fantastic.
It's such a weird compliment, isn't it, when people think you're on steroids?
Oh, it's fantastic, bro. It's a great feeling. Now, bro.
But
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah. Bro, I used to feed off of it. I used to love it. And that's when my social media started growing. And I started seeing other guys that were very like high up in the industry recognizing me. And I remember when I went to a fit expo. I went to a fitness expo. I can't remember if it was Fit Expo or Arnold's. I remember walking around in my favorite MyProtein stringer that I'd had since I was 15. It was at this point very tight on me.
Very stringy.
Yeah. Well, no longer stringy. It was tight, man. It was firm. And I looked, I remember I was obsessed. It was like, yeah, I want people to see how massive I am. And I remember going around, getting pictures with these different influencers and things, and being like, yeah, it's like, I am that guy. And I remember I got a picture with Brandon Hartbody. He's a professional bodybuilder. Lovely guy, quite popular in the industry. And he just competed or was about to compete. He was shredded to the bone. You know, he was very flat, probably running quite flat. So there was no pop to him. I remember I'd just gone and got like a pump with my mate in this like little exercise area. I look back at it now, man. It's like, damn, Jesus, I was so insecure. Jesus Christ. I was literally feeding off of insecurity, and, you know, perfectly happy to do that. And I remember getting a picture with him, and I out-angled the hell out of him. So I was there in a stringer, had a pump. He was in an oversized t-shirt. I looked massive next to him. Yeah. And I remember that feeling, and it was fantastic. And all I thought about was this being this big, massive testosterone-filled guy that was getting steroid-level results. That was fueling me every day. And it was great. Yeah. I was living blissful ignorance. I didn't realize it. I thought I was just being the best I could possibly be. I thought I was being virtuous. You know, I thought I was this pinnacle of health. this is what every man should be. Therefore, what I'm doing is virtuous, because all as men, we all need to live like this, because this feels incredible. And it's great. It's great. But when you grow older and you mature and you become an adult and you have to pay your way and you have responsibilities,
stress
you
becomes a real thing.
Stress, different ball game. Yeah. Very different ball game. Prime, you know, I remember at the time, like I was getting clients in, and I was like, as a coach, and I was like really frustrated. I was like, damn, why don't they just put the gym first, man? Why aren't they prioritizing this? They have no idea how good it feels to just do this, just listen, kind of thing. I wouldn't say that to people, but that was what ran through my mind. Obviously now I'm very much aware that, you know, you must prioritize work. Gym doesn't come first. Hormones don't come first, you know, but I think it's still definitely a fair thing to say for hormone optimization and being conscious of it in your daily life, for a better quality of life. You don't have to be all out, all guns. I've always been very all or nothing. So that was prime, like all or nothing Sam Goodson. Yeah. Whereas now I'm trying to teach myself balance, because balance is much better, and balance means less stress. Because if you're all or nothing and you have this belief, once again, perspective, that if you're going to do it, you have to do it all the way. That becomes very stressful if you've got limiting factors around you that's stopping you from doing that. Yeah. That way, you may as well just be blissfully ignorant, and you probably end up with higher testosterone levels, kind of thing. Yeah. So, yeah, testosterone optimization came from me wanting to get results as quick as possible, which I think is fair to say I did. Then realized it was all just holistic. It came from being as holistic as possible, basically doing everything that nobody was doing. So doing the opposite of everybody.
Trying to be that 1%er again.
Yeah. But in a different format, a different nuance,
another extreme format.
In a different niche, yeah. So my ego ran off of being more disciplined than everybody else. Yeah. That's when I got addicted to being disciplined. That's when I got addicted to not touching alcohol, not touching seed oils, not touching my ultra processed food, not smoking, not drinking, being this person that nobody else could do because they couldn't be bothered. And in doing so, I felt great. I felt fantastic. And I used to fuel myself. My ego was fueled off of being more disciplined. I'd walk into gyms, and whilst I would, I'd feel great because I was high testosterone. It was the ego of walking into a room knowing nobody else in here is working as hard as I am at this.
Yeah.
But they're also working full-time jobs and they have to look after a family. I'm an 18-year-old that's got a lot of time on my plate, and all I'm doing with it is testosterone optimization and training.
Yeah.
So am I the most disciplined in the room?
How many plates have I got spinning in comparison to?
I've got one plate spinning and I'm nailing it. I'm more disciplined than you. You've got to support a family. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. My ego's firing though. My ego's firing. And I look back at it now, and that was the problem. I didn't kind of realize that thing. And then kind of, coming away from prep, planning myself into a full-time job at Vault 2.0 and things like that, and trying to balance coaching and ultimately working my ass off, doing a lot, having too much on my plate. I realized it was a different ballgame. Testosterone optimization then is a different ballgame. And it is just about doing as much as you can possibly. And I still do it now. And I believe 100% from not doing it to doing it makes a massive difference. And in my mind, my kind of pursuit is success to a point of freedom where that stuff just happens naturally because you don't have to worry about it. And that way you can feel healthy, happy, energized and stuff like that. But it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
We should be able to walk around as men with high testosterone at natural levels. It's not our fault there's all this shit in our environment.
No.
It's the odds. I don't care what anybody says. Men and women, society, all of us humans, the society we're in, the programs that are running in the society, our environment, it's all the odds are against us.
100%.
The odds are against our health. The odds are against our physiological health, our psychological health, our endocrine health. Everything, the odds are against us. And it shouldn't be like that for a start. It's irrelevant of, are you going to be that guy that's all or nothing and cares about his health, or are you going to be the guy that just runs with the flow and just is blissfully ignorant? That's all irrelevant, man. We shouldn't have to think about that. We should be free. We should be healthy.
There's so many systematic things in place that are just there to keep us just slightly below that optimization.
Or critically below, man.
Well, yeah.
If put it this way, if you think about all the money that's made, all the companies, it's normalized culture as well. Like if you were to be the most healthy, happy form of yourself, in my vision, if you said to me, right, Sam, you don't need to worry about a job. You've got 60 million pounds in your bank account. I want you to show me how to be as happy and healthy as possible. I'd be like, right, move to a very hot, sunny country, right, with very little technology around. Very little Wi-Fi, very little Bluetooth, no EMFs circulating around. Live in a wooden shack, live next to the beach. All the water would be filtered. You'd either be naked or you'd be wearing 100% cotton, natural fibers.
Oh, that my protein stringer vest.
That was 100% cotton, bro. Obviously, bro, it had to be. If I was walking around as testosterone optimization, Whole Foods homie Sam, it was 100% cotton.
Yeah, just that my stringer vest though.
Yeah. So you just made it so tight that it became a compression fit.
Exactly. Yeah.
It had to make it so small. It ripped after a while, I will admit. That was a sad day, very sad day that stringer ripped.
Why was Jack though?
God, I've not worn a stringer since.
In mourning of that one stringer.
Yeah, just out of respect. And then I'd probably eat like full carnivore. You'd only eat red meat and salt. And that would be it. Like, and you'd have a family. You'd be raising children. You'd have a loving wife. You'd probably own a farm with animals that you had to look after.
Self-sustainability.
Yeah, all of that. But how possible is that in that day and age to just switch to that? Isn't that?
It is not.
So you've got to run with the curve until you get there and do as much as you can on the way to do so. Whether that be, I'm going to go and buy some clothes. Nah, that's 100% polyester and I don't actually like it that much. Tell you what, I'll look around a bit more. I'll wait till I find the clothing that is as well fitting as this, but it's 100% cotton. Or I'm going to do my research and look into water filtration and what filters what and what filters this, and should I incorporate this in my home? Is it going to save me money on bottled water? It's going to save me money on bottled water, and it's also going to mean I'm not consuming microplastics. You know, so there's all these different conscious decisions that can be made. Hormone optimization is not hard. It's just your perspective. If you start stressing that if I'm going to do this, I've got to do everything, and if I can't do this, or if there's a day that I can't, then I'm going to have a mental breakdown, or I'm going to lose it, then that's an issue. And that's what I used to be at 17, 18.
Yeah.
And yeah, they got me there, but there's so many lifestyle factors I didn't have to worry about that meant that it was easier, a lot easier. Like today, right? I'm fully aware this coffee is basically, the cup itself is made out of plastic, right? The plastic on the inside just leached into my coffee. I've probably consumed microplastics there. Hold on a minute. Where was that coffee sourced from? Was it organically sourced? Is it full of crap? Is it covered in pesticides? Could well be.
Yeah.
Yes, when I'm at home, I'll make sure that I'm having the organic coffee and I'll have it in a glass mug or just a ceramic mug. Yeah, that's the healthy option. But having this isn't going to give me a mental breakdown.
No.
Yes, I'm aware of it, so I will mitigate it. I'll reduce it. I try and have coffees at home. But I also really wanted a coffee. The offer was there.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
Don't be a prisoner of.
Don't be a prisoner to these
what
things.
You're creating.
Use them to your advantage. Don't let them use you. Yeah.
Balance.
Yeah. And obviously, like in terms of all things that, I'm writing a book at the minute on that. So obviously, but I've got in my link tree, there's a free lifestyle guide that kind of goes over things in your lifestyle that you can change and adjust. It also gives little key tips and things like that, whether it be brands that you can buy stuff from that are trusted, or, you know, this is where you can get blue light blockers, or this is where you can get, you know, skincare that's not going to damage you. So for me, it's been about building up all these tips and tricks that make it easy for people so that you don't become a prisoner to it. And you don't have to do all the research yourself. You can just read and go, right, well, okay, so I can't use this anymore. I'll get it from there.
Yeah. What's the alternative?
Yeah. So it makes it dead easy. And it makes it less overwhelming, because when I did it, the way I did it, it was all very overwhelming because I was having to research every single area that was bringing my hormones down. And I had to find out, do the research, try and test things.
Yeah.
So in doing so and writing a book, I've released a chapter of it, which is the lifestyle guide. That's in my link tree and my link bio.
That'll be in the description.
That will be. Below. I'm sure it will be. So yeah, that's like an example of that. But I do plan to release that book, but it's kind of on hold with how busy I am, because I have a full-time job, I have commitments, I have responsibilities.
I feel you, brother. I know that, right?
Life, man, yeah.
I do.
But that will be releasing at some point, and that basically just makes hormone optimization, living healthy, as easy as possible.
Love that. So I'm very aware that we're an hour and 15 into this, and it feels like we've been doing it 5 minutes, and we could easily do another 2 hours, I reckon. But I definitely think there's a second appearance on the cards, because there's still stuff that I want to cover with you.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
For today, I always finish the podcast this way.
Yeah.
So there's 2 questions. I'll start with the first one. What are the 3 habits or routines that you do that you would recommend to the everyday person to provide them with a better life?
3 habits every day.
Habits or routines that it can be a daily habit, it can be, you know, a weekly habit. It's just something that you do on a regular basis.
As soon as you see the sun is shining, you get out in it. You absorb that sunlight. Whether it's the first thing in the morning, get out the door, absorb that sunlight. Make sure your top's off. Make sure you're wearing as little clothing as possible. You're exposing your body to sunshine. Sunshine is so powerful. Treat it like it's some extreme life force. It is not bad for you. You should not be scared of the sun. It is the sole greatest life force that you can expose yourself to. Worship it. Yeah. I literally worship the sun like a nutter.
Helios, the Greek god.
Yeah, hell yeah. Helios, I love that word. Yeah, prioritize sunlight. If you see it, get in it. If you're on a lunch break, if you've got an hour's lunch break and you see the sun's beaming and it's not beamed all week, fuck your lunch.
Get outdoors.
Get in the sun. Yeah. Get outdoors. And that I'd probably say alongside that, not as a second one. I just don't want to waste my three habits. Getting outside,
honorable mention.
Just getting outside, nature, being exposed to that. Second habit, damn. I'd probably, and this is very much in line with yourself, but having maybe I'll adjust that. This is hard, man. I want to get this right. I want to give you the right answer. There is no right answers, I know.
Just your answers, Matt. Don't worry about it being right.
The second one is more of a, You say habits or what? What was it?
Routines. So like, it's not necessarily like you do an autopilot.
I don't know if I'd say this is a habit, but making sure whatever is leading you to take habits or perform routines, it's all virtuous. Evaluate why you're doing it.
What's the intrinsic motivation?
What is the motivation for this? Is it healthy? Is it positive? Is it going to lead somewhere positive? And then the habits that you do incorporate become a hell of a lot more powerful. What's the point in incorporating habits if your reason for incorporating habits isn't a strong reason? So
you can't reflect. You can't address the habits.
So second habit is ensuring that your habitual behavior is positively led. And maybe that habit itself could be analyzing that. Just analyze on a daily basis. Why do I do things? Maybe that could be a habit.
A reflective process.
Be self-aware. Every decision you make, every word you say, everything you say to yourself, what you say to other people, why you make certain decisions, analyze. Because you'll learn more about yourself. And if you learn more about yourself, you'll progress faster because you know what needs to change or you know what you'd like to change.
Yeah.
So I'd say that would be habit number 2. That's obviously a bit deeper and a bit more nuanced. But yeah, habit number 2, I would certainly say is be analytical of everything you do. Because it will lead somewhere positive for sure. Because as humans, we all have positive nature. We all do our best. We all want to do our best with what we know is right or what we think is right. And that in itself, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
So if you're going to analyze, you're only going to go in a positive direction because as human nature is to move positively forward. And then number 3.
This is a struggle spot for most people.
There you go. Number 3, do all the hard shit first. Anything that you've got to do, you need to do, you want to do, or you should do, deep down you need to do, get it out of the way first.
Love that.
That is, if you've got, whether you're a kid at school and you've got loads of homework piling up and you've got a day off, get it done first. Just start. Habit number 3, just start. Just do. And this is so cliche because we all say it, but I can't stress enough how important that is. We live in a world of procrastination. We live in a world of choosing dopamine. Do the uncomfortable. Do it first. Get it out of the way. As soon as you start, it's a lot easier to carry on.
The snowball starts rolling.
Exactly. But if you don't start, then where are you going to be? You've left it 6 hours and then you really don't want to do it because you're tired now.
You're on the back foot.
Whatever you do first, you start your day. It's like at a workout, right? When you're training. If you've got a body part that you want to bring up as a bodybuilder, you hit that first because you're going to hit it with the most energy, whether you want to do it or not. Who likes training calves? Nobody. If you like training calves, shush, sort yourself out.
Why would you want to do 5 sets of calf raises?
Exactly. So when it comes to leg day, hit your calf raises first. You don't want to do them. They're a ball ache to do. They require more effort because you don't want to do them. So by doing them first, once they're out the way, everything gets easier. It's downhill from there. So every day, do the harder stuff first. Do the stuff you don't want to do first.
And I know you say it's a cliche, but I always find that, things that are cliche.
They're cliche for a reason, man.
I always say the cliche is because they're true.
Yes.
So like the reason that, a lot of people say them often is because they have a point.
Yeah.
So the last question, and with a self-reflective chap like yourself, I think you'll like this one, is if there was a habit or a routine that you have stopped doing or have never done and would like to do, what would that one habit or routine be and why?
So ultimately, it's got to be a habit that I want to incorporate that I'm not incorporating.
Or you have done in the past and stopped it for some reason.
But is that, if it's a habit that I've stopped doing, if it's a habit that I've stopped doing, does it have to be a habit that I would want to start doing again?
Yes. Oh, well, yeah, it's something that you a positive habit or routine that you may have done. So like for me, I meditated and then just fell out of the habit. I'd like to do that again. I'd like to put things in place to, bring that habit back into my life. Or one thing that I've never done is, prioritize like yoga, because I'm as flexible as that wall that you're sat next to. Bro, so, do you know what I mean? If there were 2 that I could pick from sort of the different spectrums of that question, that would be my examples.
Well, I'm going to fire that right back at you and say meditation. Not just like meditation where you sit there and think, right? I'm very privileged and lucky to be very aware of kind of Ayurvedic medicine and the understandings and teachings of a man called Maharishi. You may have heard of the Maharishi school.
Yeah.
And that was based off the teachings of Maharishi. My father was very much into that. My mum's been very much into that. That was background for both of them, I think. But I was very privileged to learn what's called transcendental meditation, or TM. Now, it's very similar to just sitting there, focusing on your breathing and letting stuff pass through your mind, but it involves like a mantra. It involves certain key points and things like that. Now, meditation, doing transcendental meditation, it's a lot more niche, right? And that's what Maharishi used to preach and teach and stuff like that. And I've always looked at that with a side eye, like, you know, I kind of just like sit there and hum, basically. I mean, you're not humming, you're saying a mantra in your head, and oh God, you know, that's so weird. But I think that's because I grew up believing it was weird, because I saw it from a side perspective. But I'm very grateful that I actually know how to do it, because when I get the whim and I suddenly just go, do you know what, man? Let's just give it a whirl. I'm feeling spontaneous and I do it.
Yeah.
Jesus, it makes a big difference. My mum does it every day, transcendental meditation. And I understand why she does it. Transcendental meditation, there's a lot of actually science behind it. Honestly, you'd love it.
Yeah, I'll give that a look.
It lowers your vibration, lowers your frequency. It makes you more sensitive, but in making you extremely more I'm already sensitive as it is, as you can tell. Soft arse.
Sensitive boys, right?
Yeah, rugby boys, bro. Or rugby boys are the most sensitive. They're the ones. Trust me, rugby boys. They're the perfect for women. I don't know why I said that.
I'm going to clip that up.
I no longer play rugby. I don't know what you're on about. Yeah, so it makes you transcendental meditation. I don't know whether meditation does the same, but they've done research on transcendental specifically. It makes you far more sensitive, but in making you more sensitive, it makes you incredibly reactive. So whilst your awareness of things, whether somebody's got really negative energy, whether it be something bad's about to happen, like spidey senses.
Yeah, spidey senses.
Literally, bro, like spidey senses. And like gut intuition, right? You have a feeling, this is right, this is wrong, something weird's happening here, this doesn't feel right. It elevates that sensitivity, and therefore that reactiveness to go, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Or I need to go and sit over there, or I'm going to go and speak to that person. You know, it elevates that. And I always, it's like skipping calves.
Yeah.
I just don't do it enough. Probably did it about 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And fell asleep because I was so tired. But yeah, 100% meditation.
Have you ever read Blink by Malcolm Gladwell?
No.
Check that out. That's one. You'll like that. And that's sort of, Blink. It's very sort of listening, acting on the subconscious urge and the gut instinct. And it gives these very insane accounts and levels of where people have had a gut feeling and against all odds been right and things like that. And it's like the example's sort of like, if you get pushed in front of a car, you don't spend 3 minutes analysing all your options. You just do what your gut tells you to do, and hopefully that
subconscious acts for you.
Yeah. So that's a very, very powerful, and Malcolm Gladwell's sick. I think I like him as an author. He's very good. He's got some good books. But thank you very much.
Thank you, mate. I'm sorry we've waffled so much.
No, mate, I've loved every minute of it, and we'll definitely do it again.
I think based off of like what we wanted to talk about, you'd probably get like 5 episodes of this.
Yeah, easily. But before you go, I'd love to give you the opportunity to, you can have a little look into that camera and plug what you're doing, where people can find you. You just mentioned there about the first chapter of your book being sort of like released for looking at.
Yeah.
Let the people know where they can find you, Matt. So Instagram, I suppose TikTok as well, but if you're truly about self-improvement, you're probably not on that platform. Jack's laughing. So Instagram, Sam Goodson _ believe. I'm sure I'll put all these in the description.
My link tree, like I say, I've got my lifestyle guide. So if you are wanting to become a better person, if you're wanting to have more energy, if you're wanting to feel better, if you feel stuck in any shape, form or way, health and pursuing good health is always a good start, because it reinforces feeling better. right? So whether you're just psychologically stuck in a rut, you've got nothing to focus on, health's always a good start point. You're never going to go wrong focusing on your health, because you're going to feel better and it's going to push you in a healthy direction, whether it be your choices or whatever. So yeah, I've released a lifestyle guide, which is a chapter from my book. The book is going to be called Every Body Needs to Do This. I don't really know what the word for that kind of play on words is. Whatever.
A great play on words.
Yeah, we'll call it a great play on words. Please, nobody steal that book title. So I've not published it yet. Don't you dare.
I'll copyrighted.
It's copyrighted. There's a C right there, I promise.
Get on GoDaddy and buy the...
Yeah, so it's everybody needs to do this, because they don't know what they're missing, kind of thing. Feeling unstoppable and feeling amazing in the 21st century. And this is how to navigate it. So lifestyle guide is there. Picks on loads of things within your lifestyle, provides you kind of a hint of knowledge, goes, this is the case, this is how you can navigate it easily without even having to spend an hour researching it. I mean, you can if you want, you can go deeper. It's there. And then obviously there's more links in that with companies I work with, whether it's clothing companies that offer good fitting 100% cotton clothing, whether it's skincare brands like the Fat Cow Skincare, or Ancestral Cosmetics that are like natural skincare brands that you use that do not, mess with your endocrine system, that are healthy, that are natural. And then Bond Charge is another company I work with, which is fantastic for like technology that helps you navigate using technology without damaging you. Because technology is very damaging, whether it's the EMFs, the blue light, frequencies, you name it, whatever. It's disruption. So a lot of the links in my bio allow you, once you've opened your mind to what true kind of health is and be a bit more holistic, there's lots of kind of cheat codes in there, basically. King of holistic cheat codes over here.
Love that, Matt.
So yeah.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure we will definitely
100%,
do this again.
100%.